What's up, fighters? Hank here. We're going to be going over some footwork today, some footwork basics, kind of how to just set up your stance, how to carry yourself, and some basics on moving around to kind of help just with longsword, any kind of HEMA you're doing, any martial arts, or just in general. So a little bit about me. I've been doing HEMA for over 9 years now. I've been coaching for at least 7 of them. I've been doing Jiu-Jitsu. We're in the dojo right now. I've been doing this for over 3 years. Just started coaching this a few months ago. And I've been personal training full-time for over 2 years. So it's a little bit of my background, kind of where I'm coming at with a lot of this stuff. So we're gonna go over some warm-ups I like to do for footwork, basic stance, as well as a fighting stance, then some movements, and then finish up with some exercises, kind of help our hips, lower body out, just improve our footwork and movement overall. All right, so starting out with the warm-ups, I like doing what's called a dynamic heel-toe walk. So for this, we're standing up nice and straight, bringing those shoulder blades back, chest forward. You're gonna bring that foot forward, pulling those toes up as high as you can. Step forward on the heel, drive the ball of the foot down, popping up, trying to keep your legs nice and straight here. Same thing with the other foot, drive the ball of the foot down, pull those toes up, step, drive down, pull up, step, drive down. And now, if you have a little bit of balance issues with these, you just keep that back foot back. So we're pulling those toes up, step forward, drive down, keeping that back foot on the ground, help out with that balance. Same thing, pull those toes up, step forward, drive down. And this will kind of help get that blood flowing. It'll wake those ankles up, it'll strengthen those ankles over time, it'll build up the range of motion as well. Following that, I like to do a heel walk. So again, I'm standing up nice and straight, keeping these legs straight, pull those toes up as high as you can. You want to feel this all the way up your shin into the bottom of your knee. Pull those toes up, step forward, keeping these legs nice and straight. You want the movement coming from your hips, just walking back. Keep those legs good and straight, standing up, pull those toes up, feel it all the way up your shins. So after that, I like to do a toe walk. We're just driving the balls of our feet down, keep those legs straight again, stepping, having that movement come from our hips. Driving the ball of our feet down, try to spread your toes out in your shoes. Really grab that ground as you're moving. And next, we're going to open up our hips. So standing up nice and straight, we're going to bring our knee up, out to the side, step back. You want to try to open up your feet here, and then we're going to pivot on that foot, step back and recover, switch legs. Bring that knee up, out to the side, step back, try to open up those hips, pivot and recover. Up, out, back, open, pivot, recover. Up, out, back, open, pivot. All right, and especially before footwork, you want to make sure your body's kind of warmed up, your muscles are primed for what you're doing. So if you're taking it nice and slow, we need to speed it up. You want to do something a little more dynamic and get your muscles and joints ready to start moving. So I like to do high knees, where we're pulling our knees up as high as we can, just being nice and light on those toes. And then as you do that, you want to make sure you're pumping your hands down in sync with your steps. So we're bringing those toes up, nice and light, pump those hands, in sync with the steps. And then after the high knees, I like doing butt kicks. And so with the butt kicks, we're not just pulling our heel back up towards our butt. We want to bring our knee up to bring our heel to our butt. And the same thing with those high knees. Make sure you're pumping your hands in sync with your steps, keeping that chest up. All right, now to just go over the basic stance. This is a stance you can use when you're kind of working out, you're weightlifting, anything. It's just that basic way to make sure that you have good structure and stability in your body. All right, so what we're looking for out of a stance is you want to be relaxed and ready. You want to have good structure, but you don't want to be overly tight. You don't want to be too tense. So starting from the bottom up for our stance with our feet, you want to try to grab that ground, screw our feet in. One way you can think about it is if you're standing on a piece of paper and trying to rip it in half with your feet, you want to feel good outward pressure. Now you want to think about your thighs and pushing your pockets out with your thighs. You should feel tension down the sides of your legs here. We're standing up nice and straight, pushing up through the top of our head. Push your neck back, kind of like if you're giving yourself a double chin. Then squeeze your shoulder blades together, down. You can also think about really pushing that chest forward, stretching out that skin across the chest. Now suck your belly button in towards your spine, squeeze your glutes, take a good deep breath in through your nose, inflate your abdomen in every direction, and then exhale slowly, relax but maintain your integrity. So again, we're not overly tight, we're not overly tense. You shouldn't be getting tired while doing this. You should feel relaxed and ready to move in any direction. All right, and so now for the fighting stance, we're gonna take our basic stance, that dominant foot, we're gonna bring it back. So we're gonna get it back behind the heel of the other foot, angle it out a little bit. And now we wanna sit back. So we're sending our hips back to bring ourselves down a little bit. We're not going knees forward. You wanna sit back in those hamstrings, load it up back here, almost like you're gonna sit back in a chair. And now you wanna think about being as heavy as possible from as high as possible. If you think that there's a weight kind of attached to your sternum, hanging to the floor, you want good connection with the ground. If you ever watch like judo guys go at it, when they're about to get thrown, they'll grab that ground and hold on as hard as they can, and that's what you're looking for. You don't want to get pushed around easily. Standing up nice and straight, chest out, sitting back, good outward pressure with those feet, ready to move, ready to strike, ready to absorb any kind of incoming blow. You should feel, again, relaxed, ready to move. This stance shouldn't be tiring you out. If you do kind of feel like you're getting tired, take a second and be mindful if you're tensing anywhere in your body. Good deep breaths. Just kidding. All right, so now some variations on the fighting stances. You kind of have your normal general stance. You can go wider with it. And so going wider is going to give you a better base. One thing you want to be careful about, it can also hide bad balance. So if your balance isn't too great, you can go wide to kind of compensate, but it's not going to immediately make your balance better. If you go more narrow or more upright, you're going to get better movement. You have more freedom of movement, you're going to be a little bit faster, but your balance is going to be a little bit lower. If somebody kind of comes into contact with you, you need to make sure you base up well. If you take more of a bladed kind of stance, you get better in and out movement. You somewhat reduce that kind of target area for your opponent. And then you have more of that kind of squared up stance. It's going to give you better lateral movement. All right, and now we're moving around. For the most part, you're going to want to think about that front third of your foot and kind of pushing with the outside of your feet. You want to keep that good outward pressure, good base here, and staying nice and light on those toes. You can step on your heel. It's a little bit more of a heavy step. It might slow you down a little bit, but they still come into play. Practice with both of them. Just for the most part, if you're thinking about moving around, you're trying to generate power for strikes and whatnot, keep it to that front third of your foot. So the first movement I'm going to go over is the karaoke, or karaoke, or I've even told it's called a grapevine. This has to do with learning how to turn your hips properly. Our hips help us move, they generate power, and your body generates power through torque. So it's a lot of that turning is going to generate a lot of your power, and your hips generate a lot of that. So when we're doing the karaoke, you want to be careful. We're not just stepping our feet around them. This is kind of crossing up your hips here. It'll make it easier for you to kind of trip, lose balance. You might get caught on yourself, and it's not a good use of your hips. So when we're doing the karaoke, we're going to start feet about shoulder width apart. Just pick one foot up, and now with the other foot, you can think about pressing forward, turn yourself back, or pulling that heel back, kind of like you're scraping gum off the bottom of your shoe, to turn yourself the other way. So when you're doing these karaokes, you want to make sure that you're rotating your hips to move your feet. We're not just stepping around our feet. You want to think about those points on your hips. You're rotating your hips to move your feet. Another way to help kind of with this movement is you can think about pulling your hip back. So if I'm going this way, I can think about pulling my right hip back to help me step. I'm going to recover, and then think about pulling my left hip back to bring my right hip forward, step, and recover. Same thing going the other way. To bring that left hip back, I pull it back, step, recover. Bring that left hip forward, I pull the right hip back, step, and recover. So if you're doing these karaokes, grapevines, remember, you're using your hips to move your feet. You're not stepping your feet around each other. All right, so next we're gonna go over pivoting. Pivoting gives you a large change in angle. And again, we're not just stepping our feet around each other, we're rotating those hips. These hips are gonna give you more power, they're gonna make it faster and more stable of a movement. Because while you're pivoting, you're pretty vulnerable to being knocked off balance. You're on one foot, so making sure that the movement comes from your hips is gonna give you that better base. It's also gonna make it faster and stronger. All right, so starting out with that pivot, we're gonna bring our elbows up. We're looking to use our obliques here and our hips to rotate us. So we're bringing our elbows up. As we step and go for that pivot, we're gonna snap our elbows down. And as you snap those elbows down, you wanna feel your muscles on the side here engage and focus on there to help rotate you around. And while you're doing this, you just wanna kind of lock those hips so that your feet rotate with your hips and you're not just stepping across. So we're bringing those elbows up, bring them down, kind of feel those muscles engage, step out, snap, and pivot. Elbows up, step out, snap, pivot. And we're pivoting on the ball of our foot. You could also pivot on the heel. It's not going to be as stable as if you're pivoting on the ball of the foot. And after you get the hang of just doing the chicken wing, think about just pulling that one elbow back. So if I'm stepping out to the right, I'm going to pull my left elbow back and my left hip to rotate me around. And then if I'm going to the left, pulling that right elbow back to help rotate me around. And as you kind of get the feel for that, you can just start to use your obliques there to rotate you. Just step up and cool. Next, we're going to go over a passing step. So this involves a reorientation of your hips while you're moving, your closing distance, and you can use this to power attacks as well. So we're starting in that good fighting stance. We got our weight a little bit forward, hands up, and what we want to do is start to kind of bring our left elbow back to load up our forward foot. And then once we get that forward foot loaded up, we want to pull our left hip back to drive our right foot forward, landing on the ball of that foot, and recovering with that step. So again, we're just in our nice fighting stance, nice and straight, weight pretty balanced here. You're going to start to pull that elbow back, load up this forward foot, and then we're driving forward and offline, stepping with that right foot, boom, and then recovering to a good fighting stance. And same thing in the other direction. We're just pulling that right elbow back. You want to feel that foot, your glute here, your leg should get a little bit tight, loading that weight up, and then you're pulling this hip back, stepping out with that foot, and recover to a good fighting stance. All right, so I'm going to go over side stepping real quick. So this is just moving laterally, side to side here. Again, same with the pivot and the karaoke, I'm not reaching out with my foot. I want to drive my leg out here kind of as one whole unit, maintaining a good stance. So with these side steps, I'm driving off the side of my glute, pressing with the outside of my foot, and then to recover, I'm pulling with the inside of my leg here, coming back to a good stance. So we're driving out and then pulling in. Going back the other way, we're going to drive out, pull in, drive out, pull in, drive, and pull. And so now if you're taking a bigger step, so if you're talking about doing a lunge, we're stepping out, and now we have kind of two options here. I can let my momentum kind of carry me through. I'm pulling this hip back, pivoting to bring myself back up to a good fighting stance. Or if I want to recover, I drive out, and then I want to pull back in here as I push up with this foot. But I don't want to just drive up with this leg. This is a really slow kind of return to a good stance off that deep lunge. So one thing you kind of think about is grabbing behind you and then pulling yourself back up. You want to feel that on the inside of the leg here. So we're driving off that glute, landing in a good kind of deep lunge here. You could grab something behind you, make sure that core is good and tight, pull yourself back up. You want to feel that on the inside of the leg. and not just drive up with that front leg. It'll be way too slow. Grab, pull. So one of the first exercises I like doing to help out with footwork, just keep everything nice and safe, keep my ankles healthy, make sure that they stay strong, is just some calf raises. Calf raises, you can do them standing, just drive the balls of your feet down, kind of grab that ground with your toes, try to screw them in, pop up, get a good squeeze. You want to do these with straight legs as well as bent legs. Make sure you do them in both variations. And then, if you can, put your toes up on something, raise them up so you get a deeper range of motion. That'll help keep your ankles safe, help with the mobility, just good in general. Another really important exercise are tib raises. So that's just where you kind of pull your toes up towards your knees. You can do these standing, leaning against the wall. You can do them seated, pulling your toes up. If you can, you want to find a piece of equipment that's specialized for tib raising. Strengthening up that muscle kind of on the front of your shin, right below your knee, is very important for knee health, and one of the things that it really helps us with is stopping. So a lot of the times, we just practice going forward. We don't always kind of practice and build up those muscles to kind of stop and help you go in the other direction. So building up that muscle, building up your tibialis anterior is going to help a lot with that stopping. It'll help your footwork get a lot faster, and it'll keep your knee nice and safe. Another really important thing for your hips, your knees, footwork, and everything in general is working on your hip internal-external rotation. The more degrees you lose in internal rotation and external rotation, the more likely you are to injure your knee. So for internal rotation, there's a few ways to work it. You can just start by bringing your knee up and then pulling that foot in. Whoa. This is going to work the external rotation. And then if you bring your foot up to the outside, it works the internal rotation. And you can do this in many different forms. You can do it standing with your knee straight out front, out to the side. You can go down, kind of that tabletop quadruped position. Bring that leg out, same thing. You can do it sitting down, just side to side. Anything to kind of help build up that hip range of motion will help keep your knees safer, hips healthy, help alleviate a lot of lower back pain as well. Another one of my favorite exercises that'll help with hip mobility and strengthening your lower body is a Cossack squat. So we're going to go nice and wide with those feet. Just start as wide as you're comfortable. Toes forward. Try to keep those feet flat on the ground. Chest out, standing up nice and straight. You're going to send your hips back and go down to a side. Pushing that thigh out, getting a nice stretch down here. And in here, keeping that chest up. Drive up to the middle of your foot. Back to standing, down to the other side. Get that stretch, drive up to the middle of the foot, squeeze those glutes, bring those hips through, back and down. And then just work your way into it. Don't rush it. Get that stretch. Nice and low. Another exercise that is great for building that mobility and helping to kind of bulletproof, strengthen up your lower body is an ATG split squat. So you want to go nice and kind of long and narrow with that stance, making sure those toes are forward, chest up. You're going to try to keep that back leg mostly straight as you send your hips forward, trying to get your hamstring to touch your calf. You're going to feel a big stretch in your hip flexor. On this side, you might feel some pressure on your knee, so take it nice and easy at first. Keep that chest up, drag that foot down, squeeze your glute. So we're trying to go down. If kind of hitting this depth is too tough, what you want to do is raise. You can get a step, you can find stairs at home, you can get a chair. You want to raise up that front portion to help you kind of ease into it at first. If going this low is too tough. But again, you're just keeping that chest up, down, get that stretch, and drive it. Next, we're going to do an RDL, Romanian deadlift, single leg. This is a great balance exercise. What we don't want to do here is keep this leg straight as we go back. You want to send your hip back so your femur is no longer in a straight line here. What's going to help with this is kind of spreading those toes out, grabbing the ground, rotating it in. And you can try to drive your big toe down a little bit more to keep that glute activated. So you want to keep this glute nice and activated. Standing up good and straight, suck that belly button in, and then we're going to send our other foot back. And then we want to pull this foot back as if you're scraping gum off your shoe. Squeeze your glute, come back up to stand. And again, you want to make sure that you send those hips back. And then come back up. If you need to, have something next to you to hold on to for balance. Don't just suffer through the bad balance. Make sure you're actually getting good form and good technique. Otherwise, you're not going to get the gains. So if you need to have a stick or something to hold on to, or a wall or a chair or anything nearby, give it a go. Because these are not easy at first. Just make sure you got a good connection with the ground and you're keeping that glute tight, that core engaged. And some basic footwork exercises I like doing. If I don't have any equipment, I'm just in the dojo and I want to warm up. One, I just call a foot switch. You're starting kind of your fighting stance here, and then just switching your feet. So you're just going back and forth, switching your feet. Another one is just in and out. It's the bottom half of the jumping jack. You're just going in, out, in, out, in, out. Try to make it quick. Then we have step and pivots. So you just take that passing step, down, engage, pivot. Step, pivot. Step, pivot. And then you can just throw in hops, any kind of form, or just hopping. Make sure whatever you do forward, you also do back. You always want to practice going back. It'll help out a lot, and it'll keep your body safe. I think that's pretty much it. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you. Hopefully everybody kind of got something out of that. And yeah, fantastic. Woo! There we go.